Hello, it's Robert Schwimmer and welcome to my channel where we explore above and below the sea and from the air. Today we are in my own backyard, Santa Clarita Valley, in a suburb called Saugus. Right behind me is the old Saugus Speedway. Later it became a swap meet and was closed down this year and is now where you hear all the construction noise being developed for new properties. On the other side of the camera behind is the Santa Clarita Metrolink station, which services Metrolink trains every hour on the hour during the week. Freight trains usually come through about noon and then 2 and 3 in the morning, and they go all the way out to Mojave and then over the Tehachapi Pass and loop. And that's a fascinating history. That was completed in 1876, and I have a whole video on that which connects Northern and Southern California in the transcontinental. And so it was, the Golden Spike was actually driven right in the next town over, Lang Station, in 1876, and I've got a video on that that you might enjoy. In 1929, there was a train purposely derailed here and robbed. So that's our story. I'm gonna let the train go by. Right on cue, on its way to Palmdale. The train actually just came from Newhall to the Santa Clarita station, which is just a short 8-minute run, and it goes through the Bouquet Junction. And I'll show you some video on that, some aerial that I shot. The most spectacular local train robbery occurred during the early evening of November 10th, 1929. A massive 3-barreled steam locomotive of the 5000 series pulled into the Saugus station. Fireman Robert Fowler took on water. Richard Ball was the engineer for the Big 410-2. At 7:40 p.m., he slowly released the air brakes and eased the throttle open, gently taking the slack from the limited so as not to awaken any of the sleeping passengers. Fowler increased his firing rate to match the blasting exhaust of the accelerating engine and checked the pulsating needle of his feedwater heater pump gauge, making sure that he was supplying the increasing demand for the boiler water. As he overfired, the fire door rumbled and the damper levels jumped into the retainers, but soon settled down as the exhaust smoothed out and increased speed. Although this was one of many pauses on the scenic run north to Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, the importance of this daily occurrence was soon to be eclipsed by the avalanche of sensational newspaper stories. Engine 5042, train 59, approached the Bouquet Junction, making a slow right turn, now on an easterly heading, as Engineer Ball picked up speed heading towards Soledad Canyon. Suddenly, the engine began to lurch violently back and forth. Then after chewing up 600 yards of track, it crashed over on its side as a torrent of flaming red sparks that flew from the spinning drivers. Engineer Ball barely escaped being scalded to death as the steamer slid to a halt behind the Baker Ranch Rodeo Stadium, later known as the Saugus Speedway. Somehow the passenger cars remained upright, although there was a total panic on board. Into the bedlam, from out of the clear night, stepped a 5-foot 6-inch man with an air of authority. Quickly he calmed the hysterical women and nervous men, got them back into the Pullmans, and as soon as everybody settled down, robbed them of their valuables at gunpoint with a .38 caliber revolver. Then he vanished into the darkness. Next on the scene was Deputy Sheriff Jack Pember, who identified the gunman as Thomas E. Vernon, an itinerant cowboy who liked to call himself Buffalo Tom in honor of William F. Buffalo Bill Cody. Pember found that Vernon had broken into the Saugus yard tool shed, lifting a wrench and spike puller. He then yanked the bolts that were holding the rails together, settling down in the bushes to see what would develop. After the robbery, which only netted $300, Buffalo Tom walked over to the Low Ridge to Woods garage, where he hitched a ride to Los Angeles with one Thomas Firth of Burbank. Vernon claimed that he had a non-existent daughter that was injured in a train wreck and paid Firth $5 for a lift to the Children's Hospital. 2 weeks later, he derailed another train near Cheyenne, Wyoming, and was plotting a third when he was captured in Pawnee, Oklahoma. Engine 5042 laid on its side for a while. Southern Pacific Railroad crews from Los Angeles and Mojave worked through the night to build a shoe-fly temporary track around it. And they had trains actually running the next morning, but it eventually was lifted by cranes and taken to Los Angeles for repair. Then it went right back into service on the West Coast Limited, which ran from Los Angeles to Portland, Oregon via the San Joaquin Valley with connecting service to Seattle, Washington. Number 5042 was a big Class SP3 three-cylinder locomotive with a 410-2 wheel configuration. Built by the American Locomotive Company in New York, just 2 years old at the time of the wreck, it apparently contributed to his downfall when it hit Tom Vernon's handiwork. I reviewed some of the historical photos and figured out the derailment location. The photo of the Bonelli Stadium, which actually William Bonelli had purchased from the former Baker Ranch Rodeo in 1939. With a modern overlay, you can see the curve in the track on the left side of the photo where the derailment began, with the locomotive continuing up to what is now the Santa Clarita Metro Station that was actually completed in 1992. Here's a comparison of the 1929 photo of the engine and current day photo of the eastern end of the derailment. The dirt hillside was certainly a blessing because there were two canyons on each side of it, and most certainly there would have resulted in a rollover. Here's a photo of the comparison of the west end derailment area, which I started the video, and you can actually see the base of the original power poles. Well, I sure hoped you enjoyed exploring some of local Saugus Railroad history in the Santa Clarita Valley. A big shout out to SEVTV.com for their wonderful archives. I would like to thank my loyal subscribers, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and leave a comment. You know it helps grow the channel. And if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, where we explore above and below the sea and from the air. Thank you.